You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Hi, welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. I'm joined with our executive producer, Joe Venosa. Thanks for being here today, Joe.
Afternoon, Joe.
So we're going to get to some of the business coming up at the next county council meeting. But before we do that, do want to make one announcement that there is a airport commission meeting. This is their first one they've had in a couple months on Monday, September 9th. It's at 3 p.m. at the Airport Terminal Conference Center. I think one of the interesting things coming up, we've heard at some of the county council meetings, is there is about to be a ribbon cutting, so to speak, out at the airport for the new runway extension. This is something they've been working on for several years with grants. This is not something new, but it's starting to actually come to fruition. And my understanding, it's actually been about 3 or 4 year process to get to this point.
It has been a long time and a lot of steps in that process.
They're also going to do another ribbon cutting out there for the new mechanics school that they've started, which it has been in the process for about the last 18 months. It's in conjunction with the college, and they're going to actually be able to train mechanics out there, which is pretty exciting.
Busy week for ribbons.
Well, it's not. I think the ribbon cutting's coming in a couple months, but you know, if you go to the Airport Commission next week, you'll probably get the updates there. Okay. The county council meeting is on Tuesday, September 3rd. It's a 6 p.m. meeting at room 301 in the government building. I looked on their agenda. There's a couple hearings coming up. Nothing, really controversial or anything. One of them's a land preservation easement that they're moving, probably for a development. One is to allow the county executive to accept this last donation or grant from the FAA for the runway extension. And then one that has, they kind of alluded to it, and I think we're going to get more information at this next meeting, is the Library Reserve Fund is going to donate $571,000 plus for the Parsonsburg branch library renovations. It's only a partial funding. At the last meeting, they actually have been asking for some additional funds to start the design process of the new library at the Ward Museum. This is a good chance for the public to come out and get a sense of what's the library's plan, because $330,000 there, $570,000 there. These are not small numbers.
No, it adds up.
Yeah. So I wanted to discuss with you something that actually came up at the August 20th meeting, and we're going to discuss this further in the show. Obviously in the last 2 years, last year plus, there's been quite a large vocal disconnect with some of the public and the county executive's office when it comes to MOUs and special events and that sort of thing. And really started to see it come to a head at the last county council meeting. It was a little disturbing in some ways. And one of the gentlemen that has spoken out several times at the county council meetings, Michael Goldberg, he is a resident of the Shadow Hills neighborhood. He has spoken at several meetings, not always about the county executive or Charter Amendment A, but some of the other topics that have come up in the community, whether it was the new Parks and Rec regulations. I heard him speak there. The gist of this legal maneuver that happened from the engineer from the executive's office comes from a disagreement over a campaign donation that was, in the campaign finance forms, it says that Eastern Shore Undercover itself has donated $3,500 to the Friends to Julie Giordano campaign. Now, that's public record.
Correct.
It's been denied by her office and by the proprietor of Eastern Shore Undercover.
Several times.
Several times on the radio. Michael Goldberg has done his own research. He's the one who has pulled the campaign finance forms. I've seen them. He's shown them to me. It shows the $3,500 donation. And
even the sheriff showed it.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So after the meeting, as we were leaving, actually I was just in front of him. He handed a piece of paper to the engineer. She later filed charges of assault. She filed a police report saying that she had been assaulted with this piece of paper. You and I, we have definitely we've come in contact with that we're not really welcome with our opinions, right?
I think anybody in this county who has offered a contrarian opinion that someone in the executive's office or the sort of upper levels is against has generally gone after or targeted citizens. And unfortunately, I think you're seeing it at one of its most extreme iterations lately with Mr. Goldberg.
So the interesting thing is PAC 14 actually caught this, right? Yeah. We've seen the video, and we're going to show the video.
Oh,
later.
we are going to show the video.
Yeah. The interesting thing is this interaction happened on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. The police charge didn't come out till a Wednesday, mm-hmm. and when you watch the video, there's actually a time where it goes to the block screen that kind of announces the end of the legislative session, mm-hmm. and then the video comes back. Mm-hmm. So it looks like the video's over. Mm-hmm. Then there's 8 more seconds.
Yep.
Just so happens in a lucky turn of events that this 8 seconds was caught.
Yep.
Everything that's in this affidavit is refuted by the video evidence, and it's not even close.
Correct.
Neither one of us have ever abused anyone or assaulted anyone in public, and we would both admonish anyone who abuses anyone, especially women or children, right?
Correct.
So false accusations really kind of undermine the whole presence of that.
Yeah, false accusations, but also with the power and reach of a government authority. And I think therein lies the big concern that many of us have, is that if a particular employee who is a open and notable friend and ally of our current county executive, if they're willing to file false charges and file a false report, what else are they willing to do to citizens like us?
Well, yesterday in court, Mr. Goldberg was exonerated. Actually, yep. Even after pleading from their own attorney, the charges were vacated and they're dismissed. It's over. But for 7 days, Mr. Goldberg was unable, and he was unable to enter the county government building.
Yeah.
It seems like this is an effort to silence someone who speaks out against this branch of government, right?
No doubt, and unfortunately, I could easily foresee similar tactics being applied in the very near future against other citizens as this particular charter amendment campaign intensifies.
As some citizens, especially Shadow Hills, have talked about, there's been some vocal intimidation, over the phone.
Oh, absolutely,
emails.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
documented.
Yeah, and we've really tried to proceed above board. But I do think that this is actually becoming something that we need to address head on and show the evidence.
I think there's a real concern, and the situation with Mr. Goldberg illustrates it to some extent, but I think there's a real concern that this county executive and some of the people around her are perhaps willing to do far more, which people should frankly be very worried about, because citizens should not fear their government. But when their government, for personal and political capital and interests, are targeting people because of their beliefs and because they might represent a contrarian opinion, that's a very dangerous place to be.
When we come back, we're going to hear from Michael Goldberg's attorney shortly after the court appearance that vacated the charges. And then in our last segment, I'm going to invite Michael Goldberg into the studio, and we're going to have a chance to speak with him about exactly what's happened and what he's been able to do. So please stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Roaring Point Park, located about 30 miles west of Salisbury off of Nanticoke Road, offers one of the best swimming beaches on the Chesapeake Bay. There you'll find about 3/4 of a mile of sandy beach with a shallow, gently sloping bottom that's ideal for swimming. The beach can get a bit skinny when tides are particularly high, but there's usually enough room to plant your umbrella. A parking lot is available if you're visiting Roaring Point Park by car, but it can get pretty busy on hot summer weekends, so be sure to come early enough to grab a parking space. Porta potties are situated in the parking lot, and it's just a short walk through a wooded area to access the beach. A soft launch for canoes and kayaks is also close by. Roaring Park is free to all, and dogs are welcome provided that they're leashed. But please clean up after your dog so that no one accidentally steps barefoot into, well, you know. Although camping is not permitted at Roaring Point Park, a popular private campground is situated immediately next door. The point for which the park is named is actually a sandy cape that extends several hundred yards out into the Nanticoke River. Depending on wind direction, the cape usually protects part of the beach from wind and waves. Although the water is shallow on both sides of the cape, once you go past the tip, the depth drops to almost 50 feet, so be careful. Tugboats pushing huge barges of sand and gravel regularly ply the Nanticoke River in the channel just beyond the cape, and you'll also see commercial oystering and crabbing boats working the river. A pine forest provides a pleasant backdrop to the shoreline, and abundant wildlife can be found at Roaring Point throughout the year, with 140 different species of birds, including bald eagles, ospreys, and brown pelicans counted among them. Off in the distance, on the opposite side of the Nanticoke River, you can see the Fishing Bay Wildlife Management Area and its extensive salt marshes. Roaring Point is a particularly popular place to travel to by boat. If your boat is small enough, you can pull it right up onto the sandy beach. Larger boats often drop anchor just a few feet offshore where the water is wadeable, but still deep enough to remain afloat without digging your propeller into the sand. By late May, the water at Roaring Point is usually warm and comfortable, making it a great place to plant your beach chair right in the river to keep you cool while minnows nibble at your toes. You can also fish and crab directly from the beach or from your boat within easy sight of the shoreline. Then, when the summer heat becomes too oppressive, it's easy to return to the beach, anchor up, and take a swim. Fish, crab, swim, and relax at Roaring Point Park, or just come to take a pleasant walk on the beach. For more information, please visit the Wicomico County Recreation, Parks, and Tourism website.
Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. Just after court on Wednesday, August 28th, I had a chance to sit down with Andrew McDonald, who's the attorney for Michael Goldberg. We were just in court and the temporary peace order had just been lifted. So now I'd like to introduce Andrew McDonald, and let's see what he has to say. Thank you for joining me, Mr. McDonald.
You're welcome.
And you just successfully defended Mike Goldberg in district court with his case against Heather Langford. Is that correct?
I did.
So can you talk about what judgment was just rendered?
Heather Langford had petitioned the District Court of Maryland for a peace order against Mr. Goldberg. She was asking for the court to order Mr. Goldberg to have no contact with her. There are specific statutory grounds that have to be met for a peace order to be issued by a court. Any citizen can petition for a peace order, but it's up to a judge to decide whether there are sufficient grounds for a peace order to be ordered. So she filed the petition and she swore under oath that to certain allegations in that petition, and a peace order case was opened against Mr. Goldberg. Mr. Goldberg hired me to represent him, to defend him in that peace order petition, and I did in fact represent him and defend him against that successfully.
So the incident in question occurred on Tuesday, August 20th at the Wicomico County Government Building. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the allegation.
And it was shortly after the county council meeting concluded, but before the work session that was scheduled right after started. Is that correct?
Correct.
So in the allegation, the allegation was that there was an assault using a piece of paper, and in the documents it was stated that the paper was thrown at Miss Langford, and it actually hit her. Is that accurate?
One thing I wanted to make clear is that the peace order is a civil proceeding. It's not a criminal allegation, but Miss Langford did allege an assault, which can be a criminal allegation, but there were no criminal charges filed in this case by any law enforcement agency. Okay. Just to make sure that that's clear, Ms. Langford did allege in her written petition under oath that Mr. Goldberg at a county council meeting frisbee threw a document, a piece of paper, at her, which struck her notebook and struck her in the chest. And she described that as being threatening and an assault. So she attempted to use that as a basis to get a court to order a peace order.
So was there video evidence that was obtained from PAC 14 that showed the interaction with Ms. Langford and Mr. Goldberg?
Yes, there was video evidence. That video was recorded by PAC 14. It's public record of a county council meeting. This was a public forum attended by the public for the purpose of the public making statements to county government to pursue whatever agenda they were interested in. And Ms. Langford was there as a representative of the county executive's office, as I understand it. She was there to speak. Mr. Goldberg was there to speak, and Mr. Goldberg did in fact speak at the hearing. What the video recorded by PAC 14 actually shows is Mr. Goldberg exiting the council chambers, walking past Ms. Langford, and gently placing a piece of paper on top of documents that were in her lap and walking out of the council chambers. He did not throw the document at her. It did not strike her in the chest. It was not assaultive behavior intended to be threatening or to cause harm. It's clear in the video that all he was doing was passing a document to a county official who was there supposedly doing county business.
There were actually two other county employees seated on either side of Ms. Langford, and they had actually no reaction to the actions of Mr. Goldberg in real time. Is that correct?
That's correct. The video shows no startled reactions by the people sitting beside Ms. Langford. In the video, you can see council members seated there in the room doing business. No startled reactions by anyone in the room, by the council members, by the attorney representing the county council. There's no indication that anything untoward happened whatsoever.
So after this interaction, Ms. Langford elected to file this report stating the assault. And in that time, Mr. Illuminati, who is a paid lawyer by the citizens of Wicomico County, represented her. Is that correct?
Andrew Illuminati did represent Ms. Langford. He entered his appearance in writing on the record, and he appeared on her behalf in court.
Now, is there knowledge of whether or not he was representing her on a personal level or as a county employee?
Andrew Illuminati did not state in his entry of appearance whether he was representing the county or there in his status as a county attorney.
The video at times actually looks like it goes and is about to be cut. 8 seconds prior to the end of the video, there's a block screen that PAC 14 puts up announcing the end of the legislative session. After that, it actually comes back and shows 8 more seconds of video, which is actually shows the interaction between Mr. Goldberg and Ms. Langford. Is it possible that anyone who viewed that tape may have thought that was the end of the video and didn't finish watching the last 8 seconds?
That's very possible. That is a correct statement, that the block screen does come up in between the county council meeting and the incident where Mr. Goldberg was exiting the chambers and laid the paper on Ms. Langford's lap, and a person could see that block screen come up and think that was the end of the video. But thankfully it was not, because the end 8 seconds of the video is what shows that Ms. Langford's allegation of assaultive conduct by Mr. Goldberg was false.
In your opinion, do you feel like without that 8 seconds that at the end that there may have been a different outcome at this hearing? Is it likely?
Well, that's possible. Then it would have simply been a credibility battle between Ms. Langford claiming that this happened in this way and Mr. Goldberg testifying that it did not happen in that way. There would not have been definitive video evidence that would have proven that Mr. Goldberg did not act in an assaultive way.
You represented Mr. Goldberg last week at an initial hearing to when a judge released the initial peace order. Was there any correspondence or any opinion that you gave directly to Mr. Illuminati based off of the evidence you had a week ago?
For the temporary peace order hearing, I appeared in court. Mr. Illuminati appeared in court with Ms. Langford representing her, and I brought the 8-second clip from the end of the PAC-14 video to Mr. Illuminati's attention, which in my opinion clearly showed that Mr. Goldberg did not throw a piece of paper striking Ms. Langford in the chest.
Was it at that time that it became clear that this was not an assault on Ms. Langford by Mr. Goldberg?
Well, it was always clear to me, having viewed that last 8 seconds of the video, that there was no assault. All I can say is that I brought that very clear evidence to Mr. Illuminati's attention. What impact that had on him or Ms. Langford, I can't answer that question.
During the 7-day period between the temporary order and today's dismissal, was Mr. Goldberg allowed in the county government building?
He would not have been allowed in the county government building if Ms. Langford was present in the building, because under the temporary peace order, he was required to have no contact with her.
So if there was a public hearing about an issue totally unrelated to this with the county government, would Mr. Goldberg's ability to be present and speak at that public hearing have been eliminated at that time?
Yes.
So is there anything else that that you would like to add about Mr. Goldberg's case?
I'm glad that I was successful in defending Mr. Goldberg in this peace order hearing, because Mr. Goldberg was engaged in political speech in an open forum at a county council meeting, as is his right as a citizen of Wicomico County. Our Constitution protects his First Amendment right to speak to government officials and to make his opinions known, and he was at that county council meeting to speak on a political issue and to be critical of the county executive's office, which he has the right to do. And I was dismayed to see that this peace order was brought against him by a county employee, which had a chilling effect on his ability to speak freely on a political topic. It's very important for that free speech to be preserved, and by prevailing in this peace order hearing, we've taken a step toward preserving Mr. Goldberg's right to free speech and every county citizen's right to free speech at county council meetings.
I think it's very well said, and thank you for defending our ability to be critical of our government officials, whether they're the executive or the county council. That's a major part of democracy, and we do hope to exercise that to the full ability. Thank you very much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
And you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us and explain a lot more about the case. When we come back, we're actually going to have Michael Goldberg here in the studio with us, and I'd like for him to get a chance to discuss just how it made him feel and what some of his goals and missions are as we move towards this election referendum in November. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us back here at Open Agenda. I'm joined today with in our studio with Mike Goldberg. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
So just had a chance to meet with your lawyer right after the court appearance yesterday in District Court in Wicomico County. Andrew McDonald did a nice job of explaining the charges that were filed, the peace order, the temporary peace order that was given, and then the fact that it was rescinded and vacated yesterday. You were in court yourself, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, how did it feel to have to be there yesterday?
Well, it didn't feel good, of course, you know, being out in the public eye in a setting like that. It's an uncomfortable feeling, particularly when you know that you have been, you know, accused of something that, you know, provably never occurred.
We got a chance to watch the video and see that you did hand and placed a piece of paper. What did that piece of paper say?
It was a one-page printout from the campaign finance disclosure report, which clearly revealed that Eastern Shore Undercover had, in fact, made a $3,500 contribution to Friends to elect Julie Giordano, which is the political action committee for her election.
So, and this is the same donation that Sheriff Lewis referenced in his work session on August 6th, isn't it?
It is indeed.
And you were at that session?
I was.
And since then, we've heard, one of the people that has a position with the executive's office is Earl Campbell from Eastern Shore Undercover. And she said as much, that he gets out information from the county. He's been on the radio quite a bit lately, and he's discussed this, donation. And you've listened to these interviews. I mean, what has been his response on the radio? Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
Thus far, I have not really heard much on this particular topic.
Okay.
But he has clearly denied, as well as the county executive have denied or tried to work around the fact that this campaign donation was made.
So, I mean, why have you gotten involved in going to county council meetings anyway? Why do you show up?
Well, it began late this winter when the Safari at the Quarry off-road events had been contracted for with a private event promoter. Upon finding out that these events were going to take place on the quarry site, a 234-acre quarry site immediately adjacent to my subdivision, we became very concerned. And we didn't find out about this from the county executive. We found out about it on Facebook. It was completely hidden from us. There was no public hearing, no public comment period, and no conversations whatsoever.
Well, Mr. Goldberg, we're going to have a public hearing this Tuesday just about relocating forest conservation land. So you're saying there's not been a public hearing about an event held on county property next to a subdivision, a large subdivision?
That unfortunately is correct.
That would be the opposite of transparent, wouldn't you say?
I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to sit there and have a hearing and it's public knowledge ahead of time about forest conservation and FAA grants that have already really been awarded, I mean,
sure,
shouldn't we have them for other MOUs written?
Well, I think we should have them for all MOUs, especially when there are potential community impacts. In this case, the MOU or contract provided for multiple events that were specifically named with no limitations on the number of additional events that could take place. The problem is, and I can tell you from my background in commercial real estate, that when you have recurring disruptive events, it can have a profound impact on property values. As with most people, my wife and I, our biggest investment is our home. And we certainly cannot afford, especially at our age, to have that value diminished.
So, I mean, and this could happen in other parts of the county if this practice was followed. This happened in your neck of the woods, but there's really no telling that this wouldn't come to a neighborhood near you. Right?
It could happen absolutely anywhere, and it doesn't have to be the same type event. It could be another type of disruptive event that will impact the quiet enjoyment of homes, and property values, and general safety.
I was at the county council meeting last winter when you all showed up, and I remember thinking, where did all these people come from? That was when I found out about the Safari at the Quarry, and that was also when the county council found out about it too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So during this 8 days of the temporary peace order, what limitations were put on you?
Well, I couldn't be anywhere near where this particular county employee was, which essentially meant I could not enter the county office building. Thankfully, during this past week, there was no county council meeting where I do speak out frequently and vociferously, so I can educate the public on the problems that we're dealing with respect to the conduct of the county executive's office.
Well, and exercise your democratic right to petition your government and speak with them, right?
It's First Amendment right of free political speech.
You know, it's interesting too. Obviously, we've heard you speak at the county council meetings about your support for Charter Amendment A. The rebuke to that is this air of transparency. But I mean, here we are sitting talking about an erroneous charge that was dismissed yesterday. How do you feel about the transparency coming out of the executive's office?
What transparency? There is none. It's well known that the deals are made behind closed doors with respect to the county executive. Conversely, when you're dealing with the council, everything's out in public for everybody to see. It's on PAC 14. You can certainly attend the county council meetings, and everything other than personnel issues or legal issues are dealt with in front of everybody. It's absolute transparency.
Have you ever tried to intimidate or heckle anybody from speaking out against at these public hearings and these public comments against something that maybe went against your views?
Of course not. I mean, I don't have to agree with somebody on an issue. We can be political foes, but I will defend to the death their right to exercise their First Amendment rights.
Have you been heckled at these events at times?
Oh my God, yes, many times. They have shouted me down just because I'm speaking on an issue that they disagree with. It's the conduct of behavior that some people are exhibiting in the county council chambers is pretty sad.
So are you going to continue to speak your mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you intimidated?
I am not intimidated at all.
Okay. Well, we're going to continue to follow this in the public forum, understanding that the county council is still looking into your case. Obviously, Andrew McDonald has stated very much that there are some legal concerns about how your case was brought up, the validity of it, and how it was handled. So will you keep us informed?
Of course I will.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in today. Thanks for speaking with us. That's all for this episode. We'll be back next week, and we will discuss the matters of the county council meeting held on Tuesday.
I know what I'm doing, man.